Now we're back in the saddle and on the road with the men who have the staying power on one of cycling's great stage races.
Well, discussing conditions yesterday, and look back at what was really a day, I suppose, for deep sea diving rather than bike racing, and it really affected the outcome yesterday with so many riders coming in trail off in the bad conditions. But one man who went away yesterday and decided to make a good job of it out there at the moment. We had in fact two chaps who had to go yesterday, and we're looking here at Zampieri, who's trying to get in toward the finish, but in fact coming to the final climb of the day, the peloton, what's left of it on your screen here, started to accelerate and they pulled him back, getting in towards the back end of the race. So disappointment as far as Zampieri is concerned, but he's collecting enough points in the King of the Mountains which could put him in good situation for today. We'd had another breakaway rider too early on during the race as well, as one of the lads from the Lambrou Credit team went away, Mark Strail. He got pulled in by the lad on our screen, and that was it at the end of it all. So disgusting conditions, and here now we're looking at the crash which really caused a lot of problems towards the end. In fact, Daniel De Luca, who came down, and also Zulla that came down too, but De Luca, who crashed during the day, in the end he gave it up and said, that's it, I've had enough. I was speaking to Tony Rominger after the stage, and he said it was disgusting, and as far as the television cover is concerned, he was not happy either by the fact that we couldn't give you the pictures which you're seeing now. So Tony, twice winner of this race, now working with the organisation, had to be a roadside spectator like many people without any television coming through. But in the finishing sprint here, as you see the rocking across the line there, that was a victory for Lombardi, Giovanni Lombardi, riding for Acqua Sapona, freed of his responsibilities to look after Cipollini, who's got a touch of the flu, by the way. Couldn't start this race. This is the man that leads him out normally. Well, Cipollini back home recovering and getting ready for the Tour of Italy. It went to the stage then to Lombardi, but the yellow jersey still on the shoulders of this man Verbrugge, who did that fantastic time trial in Geneva to take the jersey on day one. Well, 46 kilometres to go. Gonzalez here on your screen now, and he's out there, but my goodness, with 46 kilometres to go, it's going to be a short stage today. Will he make it? Will he not? Well, we'll have to wait and see, because he's only got a lead of some 13 seconds on the main peloton. But the information about today's race is that, well, it was almost like a car rally, I suppose, because the first 70 kilometres the riders got in the team cars, buses and so on to get to an improvised start, because the rain was so bad this morning, the conditions so cold, that they decided to start the race after some 70 kilometres. In fact, the course this morning set off in a sort of circular direction from the finish yesterday. We went a bit up the road from where the finish was yesterday to start the day's race, and it circled round and taken in a climb which we came over yesterday, and that climb of the Pierre Puccius we came over yesterday. That was the one which really bent the legs of our lone breakaway rider. Well, today they went back over it again, and that particular climb, it meant that Zampieri, who did that breakaway and collected points in the King of the Mountains competition, got enough points over that early climb of the day to put himself in the King of the Mountains jersey for good. So that's one jersey at the moment. At least he's taking the lead now, but of course there's a lot more climbs yet to come in this race. Well, there we are, that's the profile. I told you about that first climb, the Col de Pierre Puccius, and that's the one when they sort of had to restart the race and go to the top of there, and that's where he got the points then to put him up in the jersey on the King of the Mountains competition. So some recompense for his lonely effort yesterday, and we've got to take our hats off to these riders who are here working very hard indeed under awful conditions. And likewise also, you see here the motor cameras putting on the screen the names of the people who drive the motorcycles and operate the cameras, and also clean the lenses from time to time. We need a windscreen wiper on the lens, don't we? They do a tremendous job, and it's so difficult under these conditions for them to bring you the pictures, as Gonzalez here still presses on with his lead, which, as you see, is very slender indeed. Riding for the Escatel team, and it's interesting, they have gone to the trouble of plastering their name all over the jerseys, or the waterproofs you see here, so you can pick out, and you can see by his number on the bike there. But the big problem for the judges too is when the conditions are nasty like this, then they put on these racing capes, and very often you can't see the colours of the riders. We can here, and the name, but also they cover up the number on the back, which makes it often difficult for the photo finish camera to pick them out. But on this particular race, they do have a little device down on the front spindle. You may see it, a little sort of rectangular device hanging down from the front spindle, and that, steady the buffs, right now, that device is a sensor, so when they go across the finish line, it can record them. So even though we will have the photo finish there as well, they do have this recording device with the little tag taking the riders as they go across, and that informs them of the finishing order of the riders. Well, 5% down here as far as he's concerned. Not a big drop, but enough help, I suppose, is always very much respected and looked for. Going back to the little chip thing that picks up the riders going across the line, why, you might ask, do one still have photo finish equipment? Well, the reason is that if a rider changes the bike, for instance, say has a smash and gets onto a spare bike, then if they totally rely upon the chip, when he comes across the line, having left his smash bike with the following car, then the chip won't pick him up because he hasn't got one, see? So we need to have both systems for the riders to be recorded as they go across the line. So that's one device there, which is very useful for putting out quick results, but the judges still have to check back to see in case there might have been a problem, like as a rider having to drop out his front wheel for a puncture, maybe not getting the chip back in again, or crashing and changing his bike, and therefore the machine didn't work when they go across the line. All complicated stuff in cycle racing, but here we are. They haven't got a chance to wear umbrellas or galoshes. They're pressing on, splashing their way to the finish of this stage, then stage 2 in the Tour of Romandie. Well, we're just going there to see Freiburg coming up onto the screen as we're going to splash our way through Freiburg. If you're looking on your maps about the whole route of today, then you certainly pick up a Lac de Neuchâtel. No, they're not riders amidst the lac, by the way. They're actually riding on the road that goes south of the lake, almost in parallel to the lake of Neuchâtel. Started this morning, if you can look on your maps and see that place called Biel, B-I-E-L, or B-I-E-N-N-E, Bienne, just north of there. They finished there yesterday at Malmö. We started just a bit further out from there today, did this circuit, bit by car to begin with, and then came back through and came through Biel-Bienne, then heading south of the Bielersee. You'll probably see that on your map, the very small little lake, and then down through Aarburg, and then towards Merton, and down into Freiburg, where the riders are now. In fact, we went very close to the race today to Merton, where on the Tour of France a few years ago, when we came through into the edge of Switzerland, I remember staying at Merton at a nice hotel there, overlooking the lake. Excellent view it was, excellent meal too as well. And outside in the play area, they had got a Jaguar Mark II. And they'd just sort of marooned it there and stripped out all the seats from the inside, and had put in there a play area for the kids. And obviously I couldn't look inside the bonnet if the engine was still there, because it looked like it was all screwed down. But there it was, sitting very sad upon its flattened tyres. It had been painted all over with decorations for kids, and the publican used it, or the hotel keeper used it as a playground for the kiddies, and they would climb in and out of the Jaguar, which had the doors off on the one side, so the kids could get in and out of this thing and play around in the Jag. I thought, well, what a shame, but there you are. Jaguar 2.4, which many of you know. Mark II 2.4 was used by John Thorpe when he was when he was taking part in the series with Morse Inspector there, and certainly the car they used there, the 2.4 Mark II, very similar to the one in Merton, except that this one was a complete disaster. And what I didn't know, by the way, as we watched the race coming through Freiburg here, that Jaguar Mark II 2.4 was, in fact, when they first bought it for the series, that was, remember, 13 years ago, before they did, what, about 33 different episodes of Morse, the Jaguar was a bit of a scrap heap car when they got it. It was an absolute wreck, and they would actually push it onto the set to begin with, and then eventually they sort of recovered the engine, made it all work and smartened it up and somewhat, so then it could actually be driven. But to begin with, the stage has used to shove it as it would come onto the set, and that's perfectly true. I read it in one of the car magazines only recently. And in fact, Colin Dexter, because it became so popular, the Jaguar, that he changed and got the people that printing the Morse series books to change it, because the original car in the series was a Lancia, and so Colin Dexter agreed that the Lancia could be changed in all future reprints of the books about Inspector Morse, and he changed them to a Jaguar. So if you've got one of the old books there with a Lancia in there, then subsequently you'll find the new books have got the reference to the Jaguar, which has become really a collector's piece. And in fact, it's being, I think it was due to be auctioned in London sometime this week. It seems like those poor chap's going to get himself well and truly caught, by the way, any minute now. And the pressure being put on by the chaps in red, that's the lot from the Lotto Adeco looking after the yellow jersey, the leader Verbrugge. So going back then to the race, there they are, that's Lotto going to pull back this chap at the moment as we go through Freiburg. And going back to the nice red Jaguar of Inspector Morse, John Thorpe, the car has gone up for auction, and they reckon it might get quite a hefty premium because of its use in the film. It was, I say, renovated over a long period of time, and it was then put up for auction sometime this week. Interesting to see how much money it collected, because somebody said the value of it was only about £7,000, but it was worth a lot more having been on the TV series. Well, here on TV, the sprint, because there are 3, 2 and 1 seconds bonus, and don't ask me who's first, second and third. The man in the cape and the yellow was on the left-hand side first, the man in the red cape on the right was his second spot, and the blue cape on the extreme right was in third. Wait for the official confirmation to come up, or over our headphones or across on the screen here, but certainly I would suggest that the man in the reddish coloured jersey was either Verbrugge himself or one of his teammates trying to search for the points, because the situation at the moment, and that might have been Moose on the left-hand side, as now we're heading off through Villers-sur-Glâne, the situation at the moment is that Moose, I hope I spell that right or pronounce that right, M-O-O-S, Moose, got the first of the bonus sprints early on. We look back again here, and in fact I'm sure that's a Phonak rider on the right-hand side of your screen, and just wait to see if they come toward us. That's certainly Lotto on the left, and could be Taconi Sport out there anyway. So as they were sprinting there for the particular points, and our little chap out in the front took 3 points. There was 2 and then 1, not only points but also bonus times as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, because the first sprint of the day that we had, then on that particular occasion, Moose getting that one, grabbed himself 3 seconds bonus. In fact, he's done it again, 3, 2 and 1 for Verbrugge then in second spot, and Mazzoloni into third. So that means that he's now got an extra advantage over Verbrugge again, because he did that before, and in fact now Moose then going into the lead by, according to my calculations, about some, let's see, 3 and 1, about 4 seconds, no, 3 seconds ahead of Verbrugge. Not much in it yet, but do bear in mind when we get to finish of the stage, the time bonuses are 10, 6 and 4, but I do think that somehow we'd like to find somewhere like Lombardi going for the sprints at the end of it all, if he can do that. But I don't think we're going to see a sprint finish today, because those who saw the profile of the course this morning when we first started our program, sorry, this afternoon, will know that we're on the long drag now, up from Freiburg through Villers-sur-Glâne, and it goes all the way up now to Trevaux, which is the second category climb which lies ahead of them, and the other second category climb is a place called Châtelet sur Mont-Savin, and that climb is right at the back end of the race and almost within a stone's throw of the finish, and that's why I don't think we're going to get a bunch sprint finish today. So that lies ahead of these riders, 2 climbs, the one that's dragging up ahead of them now to Trevaux, where they will go 756 meters above sea level, and then we shall find them going in toward the finish for the final climb of the day at Châtelet-sur-Mont-Savin, with only less than 3 kilometers from the finish on that final climb of the day. Won't be a brunt sprint today, I don't think. Well, the race continues. The not having, as we do with cricket, rain stops play. It's like, I suppose that must be the reason that things have gone so grotty now, because the cricket season started, hasn't it? Not out here in Switzerland, of course, but it all seems to me that the nice weather disappears the minute the cricket season starts. If you can see through the murk and looking at the riders here on this, the 56th Tour of Romandie Stage 2, you can see it there on your screen. The lads in the yellowish jerseys, they are the lads from the Phonak team, and the man who's now moved himself up into lead, Alexander Moose, has 157 on his bike, so if you can spot the number plates going by, that's him. Now, number 5 there is Mazzoloni from Tacconi Sport, who we saw galloping in the sprint a bit further back there, and he's riding for Dario Frigo, who has number 1 on his bike and the blue anorak like this, because he was the winner last year of this race of Frigo for Tacconi Sport. So that's the number. The small numbers then down 1 to 8 are for the Tacconi Sport team, and you can see here then that they're doing a lot of pressure on the front and just trying to keep Frigo in contention for the overall honours. That climb towards the back end, I think, will probably suit him. He's an extremely good climber. You may remember in the Paris-Nice when he managed to go up the climb and take the stage up the Col d'Ez. So he's a jolly useful climber. That might suit him to be up there as well. Again, in the stripy shirts and trousers and everything else here, that's again one of the riders from the Mario Cipollini's squad out there, the one Acqua Sapone. Lombardi, well, he got his stage victory today, but somehow I don't think it's going to work again. Here the chap in the Tacconi Sport colours, Mazzoloni, going up there to Gonzalez, have been quite chirpy all the way through. We've seen him already having a little bit of a go. I'm not sure that Mazzoloni will do much more than stretch the legs of the chase peloton for the benefit of Frigo. I don't think he'll be allowed to go too far down the road. The job is to make the rest of the field chase after him. Well, going through Poisson now, and there's 32, or call it 33 kilometres to go to the finish of the stage today, and 140 kilometres would have been under their belts had it been that they had started and gone through the course proper. They're still out there. Right, might you ask me? Yes, of course you can. What happened to David Miller yesterday? Well, in the stage yesterday, he finished in 11th spot. I'm not sure if we're going to run up on screens here for you the results of yesterday. We couldn't get it to yesterday because of the grotty conditions, but I said Tony Rominger, who's been working for Eurosport in the past, now with the organisation promoting this race, was really tearing his hair about the conditions and the way in which the television went down the pan, and everybody just lost the whole plot yesterday. After those terrible conditions when they came across here, we haven't as yet shown you the results on the screen here. Oh, thank goodness some of them taking off their wet weather clothing, though 33 kilometres to go. I don't know, still a bit nasty out there. The result yesterday was that Lombardi won the stage ahead of Gutierrez from Calmi into 2nd spot, and in 3rd spot was Mazzoloni, who's here on your screen having a bit of a dig yet again. In 4th spot was Cavagnes from the Landbu Credit team, and in 5th spot the Rabank rider De Groot, and then back there in 11th spot was David Miller riding for the Cofidis team. He was in the same group there with the Brugger, who'd got the yellow jersey as the overall race leader, and a load of other characters. There's a bit of a gap back to people like Zuller, who we saw crashed down there too. And in that crashes too, Marcus Berg was fell and he abandoned with Dana De Luca, so quite a bit of a thinning out yesterday. Alex Zuller having all sorts of problems. If you did see the start of our programme when he went down, a bit of a crash, a bit of a ball of chalk, and down he went. He has enormous problems with his glasses. He's one of these chaps who has got what they call bottle glasses almost. They're enormous thick lenses, and he's had some special glasses made for him over the years for wet weather conditions like this, in an attempt to allow the wind to clear the muck from his glasses. But he does have great difficulty seeing in the wet weather conditions, and so he went down with a crash. I don't know if it's to do with his glass or somebody else, but certainly down he went yesterday, and so that maybe put him out of contention for the final victory when we get to the finish on Sunday, where there is quite an extensive time trial, and you might be looking forward to that, because the time trial is just over 18.3 kilometres. Now, if David Miller can stay with this race, that could suit David. 18.3 kilometres. When we're in Lausanne, we do a big loop route, Lausanne to Lausanne, but the day before we finished at the top of a big mountain at Leysin, which might not do David too much good. But anyway, he was 11th yesterday. He's moved into 7th spot now on the overall classification, because one or two riders ahead of him on the time trial. You may remember he was in 10th spot after time trial. David now moved up to 7th because one or two dropped out of the frame just ahead of him, following the problems we had yesterday. So the overall situation is that Brugger from Lotto is the race leader, and in 2nd spot Moose was this morning. Mazzoloni was 3rd. Well, Mazzoloni being allowed a certain amount of freedom here, towing up Gonzalez with him, and he rides for the same team as Frigo, who is the man who won it last year and is probably amongst their tips to try and do well. But on the overall classification at the moment, Frigo is 6 seconds back. That was at that this morning before the bonus had taken into account. But Brugger this morning had 1 second lead over Moose of the Phonak team. And in 3rd spot, Mazzoloni, who we've been picking up on our screens. And we're now going back out there, and on your screen then for the Cofidis team is David Miller. My goodness, just imagine that. He's been struggling with that terrible problems that he had with this monoclue, as they call it in France, and he's now looking like he's made enormous recovery, and he's left his home down there in Biarritz and come up here to ride in this race, and David having a real good go. So glandular fever is what he went down with, and there waving the flag for Great Britain we have David Miller well in that breakaway group with Rottiman, De Groot, Pron and Sabalida. Great to see David. Can you just imagine it, what he's been through in the early part of this season, missing so much racing, and he comes into this race and he's up there with the best of them, starting this morning in 7th place overall on general classification, after 11th place he had yesterday, and after the 10th spot he got in the time trial on day 1. So no doubt that back in High Wycombe there'll be great celebration. And we see now the current leader, Moose, ahead of the Brugger by 1 second. That's what they're putting up there at the moment. I thought it was a bit more than that, but I'll go with the official situation that Moose a slender lead on the Brugger. And going back to the overall classification, with Miller now beginning to prize his way off the front, then he was just in the frame still. Looking, in fact, no, I think he's at 21 seconds. No, my mistake. Just check the classification. He's a bit further down, so he might be able to have a bit of freedom here, David, at the moment. But do bear in mind, if he can stay close to the leaders, that final Sunday could be what he's looking for with that time trial in Lausanne. There he is, lying 2nd in line, David Miller. Somehow, seems to me that the rest of the group behind him don't seem to be too bothered about the concerted effort to pull them back. And Mazzoni here. Gonzalez, I think they're going to wait for David Miller's group to come up. That's good. Yep, they've let them come up now, so that's quite useful then. There's your little group down there, which you can see on your screen in that breakaway group, and nice to have Miller in that lot. Heron, well, there's a good hitter, by the way, very capable of driving this thing along and working with them. That's a nice workman-like group. And a good smattering of teams too as well. But this is where Phonak have got to start chasing, and also the Lotto team. So when our cameras go back, we'll be looking for red waterproofs and yellow waterproofs as being those of the Lotto Adeco team, and the yellow ones being that of the Phonak squad. Well, they're all taking in turn, just watching, see who goes through and does a bit of work. I think Miller's just taking a bit of a breather at the back. He worked hard to take those chasers up to our leading twosome, so perhaps he's getting his breath back here. Well, I know they've got a class rider when he starts coming through. And there he is, in the red, white and blue. Yeah, at the moment they're all taking turns, and that is the main pack that is losing ground. Yep, the red jersey on the front, you can see the Lotto team beginning to, I'll say panic, but they've got to start working. They've been doing a lot of work during the day so far, and not many red jerseys to do a turn on the front, and only a smattering of yellow jerseys too as well. So this could play in the hands of our breakaway group. And here they are. Now that could be a jolly good move for Miller and those other chaps to go away, because you can see how the bunch, I won't say they're huddling together for warmth, but certainly it makes life difficult if this lot can roll comfortably, which they seem to be doing at the moment. Just watching the group go through. Maybe it's another strong big hitter too as well. Yep, there we go. That's the Phonak team coming through at the front, 1-2 of them, and infiltrating by the Taconi Sport. He won't get any help from the chap in the blue, by the way. And again, just behind more of the Phonak riders, they've got to do the work, and hovering then behind them. Now, of course, this is what they've got to do, because technically they've got the yellow jersey. The red jersey of the red anoraks, waterproof covering for the Lotto Adeco team, they did a lot of chasing further back, but of course once the situation changed on the road, not as this morning when the yellow jersey was on the shoulders of the Brugger, but now because of those bonuses, Moose has taken the lead. It's up to the team from Phonak to start the chasing to pull back this group down the road. So it does give a bit of a breather for the Brugger's team just to rest in the wheels with the yellow shirts, but if they don't manage to do something dramatic to pull back this group, I have a suspicion that we might see the red jerseys come through back again and have a bit of a go. And the man who's sitting really much in the pound seats, or should I say the Euro seats, although no, in Switzerland they still have the Swiss franc, so at least Switzerland and Britain still protecting, looking after their currency, so that in the pound seats there's certainly Frigo ride for Taconi Sport with his 2 men up the front. Well, back in that group is last year's Victor Frigo from the Taconi Sport team. Frigo, I think, means fridge in Italian, and certainly it's not quite as cold as it was yesterday when temperature was between 3 and then 5 degrees centigrade. It's a pretty miserable and cold day yesterday. Slightly bit warmer now. We've come off the mountain into the flattened roads, or more undulating roads south of the Lac de Neuchâtel, and starting our gradual climbs now as we pick up the 2 final climbs of the day, and particularly the last one with less than 3 kilometres to go from the finish will certainly hurt a few legs, and could perhaps see a change overall in the general classification. Again, you can see with these roads here, the Barrage de Roth. This is now on the run in towards Gruya. We're not just a bit in the Gruya territory. We're going to finish a place called Charmey today, where up to the side, up towards the top there, they've got some thumping great big mountains where the skiers go. We're now coming across one of these barrage across the lake, the Lac de Gruya, and there they go. Fortunately, the waves aren't blowing and the wind isn't blowing enough. Sometimes seen on these barriers or barrages where the water comes down and starts to hit, and the wind just blows over the top, and you get a shower as you go through. But it looks okay today. The rain is just coming from the sky and not from the lake on the right-hand side. There we are, that's the climb we're on to now. We've crossed over the barrage and up now. That was the Lac de Gruyer, the man-made lac you've just seen, onto Trevoux. 4.6 kilometres of gradual rising. Not too much there, 93 metres, and this one will certainly hurt the legs, but it won't be the decisive move of the race, I don't think. I think we have to wait for that one for the last climb of the day before that's when the proverb is going to hit the fan. Let's see if this group at the front are going to maintain. If they drop to second or so, it's 231 kilometres, sorry, 23 kilometres towards the finish. Got my glasses covered in steam here. It's a horrible grotty day for commentators as well, but 23 k's to go. And when they get to the top, there's not much down the other side, just about a couple of kilometres, maybe 3 at the most, and then it flattens out, and then we start up that final one too. So this group, if it can just survive this climb here, might be able to, down the other side, hold their advantage and then contest the last little bit themselves together. Well, it looks like the group is beginning to struggle just a bit at the back. And who's driving this one? Well, Miller looks in good form. 2 of the riders then for Tour Sport, taking on the driving at the front. Well, Frigo's obviously said, go on, chaps, off you go down the road, because we've got Ruttemann here, number 2, and number 5 is Mazzoloni. Now, Mazzoloni will be the protected rider in this little group here. It's going to be up to his teammate. You see on the front there, Ruttemann, the Swiss rider, driving this one hard, with his teammate just behind, and the Italian Mazzolini, because he has got the best chance of taking over the lead on general classification. Sitting in there, just dropping back a bit now, and David Miller working hard too. Good to see the way in which the Huescadi boys, they've been pretty active all the way through, despite the fact that's where the Spanish aren't used to much bad weather like we're getting here. But Gonzalez, who was the very active one early on, they might see how high up there. Not too bad. Tomorrow's a big one. Well, 2 from Tour Sport, 2 from Euskaltel, 1 from the CSC team in there too as well. Now that's intriguing. In fact, one of the Coffee's riders starting to work hard there. We're going back again to our leading group. 2 from Huescatell at the bottom of your screen there. 2 from Tour Sport. The group, I think, was the one that was struggling a little bit more than most of them. Well, Perron for the CSC Tiscali team, a very good rider against the watch and a very good strongman. He's been around a few years now, and I think if he starts to drive this one through, then we'll also see the speed going up likewise. The Tour Sport boys are prepared to have a go now, and so is David Miller. Oof, they can see the big bunch behind though. Now then, chaps, are going to continue with it. This is the moment, I won't say of indecision, but if they drive the top of this climb and keep it going, then there's a fair chance they can stay away. I think they now take it a little bit easy and think, no, we won't put too much into it. That bunch behind is closing up very quickly indeed now. A lot of pressure being put on by the Phonak team, and they're coming back out to our breakaway group of riders. Those 7 men, the lead being whittled away by the charge of the main group behind. Just down to 12 seconds, then 13, hovering. You can see one that rather looking like he's trying to come across that gap. It looks like he's been pulled back in there again, and I think it's the Lotto team that have taken on the driving. Looking for the red jerseys coming through here, as the yellow anoraks of the Phonak team seem to have dropped off the pace a bit now. Now this is dangerous. When they keep looking round like this, they've got to be very careful to maintain the momentum, because if you look round like this and they'll just ease back a bit, then this way you can get a touch of wheels. When the conditions are wet like this, you don't want to slap the brakes on either, because you can skid when you put the brakes on. But the other thing too about putting your brakes on in wet weather like this is that on the rims the brake blocks don't work that well. And yes, I said Phonak are going to do what they could to pull back that brake, and it looks like they're certainly going to bury themselves here for Moose, and one of the chaps is going to get across, I think, any moment now. So he could join up with the lead, and if he gets there, then I think we're not going to see anything coming from him. Just shows it is crossable, but his job when he gets there. Sorry about the old pictures giving a bit of a blip, by the way. This is kind of one of the problems. Let's hope we don't have the repetition of what we had yesterday. Oh, by the way, watch out on Eurosport News later on during the day, because today is the day when they're choosing the rest of the teams for the Tour de France. Because you may know that on May the 2nd, it was announced the Tour de France will pick up the final 5 teams who are looking for a place in the Tour de France this year. They've already selected the top 10 teams: Fassa Bortolo, Telecom, Rabobank, Mapei, Lotto, Benesto, Cofidis, Once, US Postal and Domo. They've already been selected through there on the selections as they go, and then after that they've been putting in the other teams based upon the successes last year, people which are making up the top selection of 18, and they're now looking for the final 5 that will be announced today. Well, they've survived so far, but they've got one addition to the original 7 men that went away on this stage 2 of the Tour of Romandie. They've now been joined by the rider from the Phonak squad that worked his way up to them, Cedric Frasnier from Switzerland. He's gone up to join up with that little group there. You can see that the gap is now just 10 seconds. In fact, more riders are starting to come across to them, so I think it's going to be bye-bye as far as this breakaway group's being concerned. And David Miller's chance of getting a stage, but it can still be there when we come to climb. But look at this long line here. If it breaks in the middle, then a lot of riders are going to find themselves coming in and losing time. It's so closely packed at the moment. Just to update you, in fact, if you've just come in and switched on the telly, that the situation has changed since we start this morning. When we start out this morning on the stage, the Phonak riders you see here, we're back there with Moose in second spot by 1 second over Brugge, and he, in fact, through the interim sprints we've had, gained enough bonuses to move ahead of Brugge by 1 second, and that's the reason that his teammates are becoming quite active here to stretch the legs of everybody else, because there's such a close call on the overall situation that we've got no less than 6 riders, with Frigo in 6th spot at 6 seconds, and back behind him with David Miller is together with another of the Phonak riders, Salmon. They're 21 seconds back. David losing a little bit of time yesterday, but still poised usefully, particularly if he can stay close and within, say, half a minute of the leader for that final time trial on the Sunday. But today I don't think will be the complete gutbuster and split the thing up. It's tomorrow where we're going to have the final climb, or a climb at the end of it all, which takes them up to the place called Lacim. And when they get up there, it'll be the whole climbing during the day is 2,900 meters of climbing during the day, and they get to the top of the climb at Lacim, and that certainly, I think, will set the scene properly for the final time trial. But do bear in mind, some of the climbers aren't great time trialists either, and so if David can stay close that little lot, we could perhaps see him up there. So that still again is a rundown on those original riders. They down as far as Gonzalez and Zubalida were the early riders that went away, and now Frasnier has been joined by Moose, his countryman and teammate from the Phonak team, and he technically in the yellow jersey is the overall race leader. So expect behind here, A, to see 1 or 2 hopeful chaps jumping across the gap who are looking for a stage victory, but B, that Verbrugge has got to try and do something to keep that gap down, or if necessary get across and join up with them too as well. So a fascinating run in towards the finish today, and a god-awful day for anything, I suppose, except just for ducks. That's the sort of day it is, and those you back at home can only, I think, join me in saying that what a way to earn a living riding your bike under such conditions as this. But that's 2 days on the trot, getting all your gear awful mucky. Fortunately, they have so much spare kit they take with them, and today too, many of the big trucks that go with the race, where they keep the spare bikes in where the mechanics work, some of them do have now in there their own washing machine set up, so that the soigneurs at the end of it, and what they call the boys, the chaps who cart the bags in and out the hotel bedrooms, who by the way never see the bike racing. A lot of people go ahead in the vehicles, they go to the hotel, they take in the rider's baggage with the rider's name on it, they put it in the hotel bedroom, so when the rider gets in there, his kit is in the room, ready to unpack his bags and settle down on the bed and rest before they go out their evening meal. So there's people who drive ahead to do that, and then when the riders in the morning get up after they've had their breakfast, they start to go down towards the start the day's racing. Again, these chaps take all the gear out of the bedrooms, put it into the cars, drive ahead, so they never really see any bike racing. The nearest they can get to it is what you're doing, watching it on television, but even then they're always very busy anyway. So just spare a thought for those people who move around with the cycle racing, and their job too likewise, when all this soggy gear is there at the end of the stage, when the riders got themselves all cleaned up, and they've got to get that lot out and get it all washed and dried, not for the next day because enough spare kit they bring with them. The other big trouble, of course, with the this equipment now, the riders with the saddles on the chamois gets very wet too, and you can't put the chamois into a dryer and heat it up because it'll ruin it. Many of the riders are also using not natural chamois, but the sort of the chamois which can be dried fairly quickly, but a lot of it still prefer the original chamois, not the substitute chamois, and drying those out is quite a job. Those who know about chamois leathers, when you maybe wash your car and dry it down with a chamois leather, when you hang it up in the garage afterwards, next day you come to use it when it's dried out, it's hard, isn't it? It's almost brittle. You almost break the chamois. Well, you can imagine that if you put these shorts through a hot dryer and the chamois just went like a board, then you couldn't really put it on the next day without causing yourself some harm, making your eyes water. And the other thing, of course, they do put cream into the chamois to make sure after it has been dried slowly and steadily before they sit on it the next day. And some riders also put plenty of talcum powder around the important bits as well to stop any friction likewise. All this goes on, we don't see it on the box here, they finish, off they go, all that has to be done ready for the day afterwards. But a thought also for the mechanics, because they've got to, at the end of the race, you'll see them outside the hotels with these great big trucks setting up their stands, and some of them have an awning which comes out from the top of the van so they can actually work in the dry conditions, but they've got to go and check the bikes all the way through. They've got to dry them down, they've got to check the tyres, make sure there aren't any cuts in the tyres, they've got to maybe change the gear ratio for tomorrow, that big climb yet to come. They've got to oil the bikes, make sure everything's working all the way through, and if somebody's crashed and fallen off, just repair the bit of damage that's been done. So they'll be working long after the finish of the riders today, under pretty horrible conditions for everybody connected with the event today. Work being done by the Phonak team. They did a wonderful job there. You see 57 kilometres per hour. No, it's not Mr. Hines, it's the Phonak boys on the front driving this one along, and looking to keep the thing together for the final climb of the day, which should really, I say, sort the men from the boys. You see how nice and flat it is on the right-hand side of your screen. That is the Lac de Groye. We're going into the canton area around. This is the Fribourg canton we're in now at the moment, and then we're going to move in towards Groye. But in fact, Groye down in the south and Broye, to those areas, were sort of absorbed by the Fribourg canton, which we came through a bit further back. We came through the main town, and then now moving on through here and turning our backs on that beautiful city. By the way, it happens to be a bilingual canton capital. So on the one side of the river is what's called San. They speak German, and the other side of it they speak French. So it's split. And in fact, if you go into Freiburg, as these riders did, thundering through a bit back down there, we didn't have a chance to see the street names because it was pretty grotty and the cameras didn't pick it up either. But you would see that in fact they have the streets named in both French and German. It's that bilingual round here, so you get both of them on the street names in Freiburg. Well, we've just gone through a bit down the road from here, and before the field erupted, a bit of a chase group went off the front, breakaway group 7, and then the field then putting the pressure on to put it all back together again towards the end. So you can see that the final climb of the day, how far it is that they've got to go, and well, they've done a wonderful job, these Phonak riders, with it all splashing all over the place. And we're going into, say, Gruyere, and I've likened, excuse me saying this for many of you who heard it before, by the way, their bicycles. I don't think we'll be able to see it, even if our camera went back, splashing through the rain here, to see round about the bottom bracket and round about the seat lug area, where the lugs they've been using, and the head lugs too, amazingly, they've got holes in them, and it reminded me of those BMC bicycles of Emmental Cheese. Now, we're not going to Emmental Cheese area, we're going down towards Gruyere at the moment, but that's the one you know has got all those holes in it, and their frames are remarkable. I've had to find out from the manufacturers of the bikes where they put the holes in to remind them of Emmental Cheese. I think there's probably some reason. No, it's to add strength with the gussets and to lightness as well, so that the aluminium that we did, the castings of the aluminium for the lugs, would have lightness by putting those holes in it too. Well, we won't be able to see it today because it's full of water sloshing around inside it, but that was the BMC bikes ridden for the first time this season by Phonak, and I think they'll be jolly happy with the results so far. I think they used to ride the American Scott bikes last year. Now Scott have changed over and have got another team riding on their bikes, and I have to scratch my head and remind which one it was, but certainly Scott still in the sport area with their bicycle. I did get an inquiry, I don't know if he's watching now, one of the emails came in as to where the copy bikes are this year. Is anybody riding them? And yes, the Index team, Index Alexio, that's Index Alexio Aluminium, they are riding on copy bicycles, so that's a bit of news for, I forget who it was now, but we had an email asking that very question. Right, now as they're all fairly well packed together, just excuse me if I go far north from here up to Paris, and sitting here in the seat giving you information about the selection of the teams for the Tour de France today, which will be out by the way now, and if you can whiz it up on your computer. It's impossible by the way to operate computers and cover cycle race at the same time, but if you've got it, you can probably find it on the www.latour.fr for France, or you'll get it on Eurosport as well on our computer system. You'll pick that one up too. That'll be the 5 teams, or maybe they're going to make it 6, who have been selected for the Tour de France. And the teams that have already been selected, by the way, by virtue of being in the top 10 teams at the end of last year. The top teams were as follows: Fassa Bortolo, Telecom, Rabobank, Mapei, Lotto, Benesto, Cofidis, that's iBenesto, Cofidis, Once, US Postal and Domo. Now beyond that, they then select the team that won the World Cup last year, the Coupe du Monde. Well, Rabobank did that last year. They're already in the top 10, so that they moved down to the next one. And the group sportif that won the Tour of France last year also gets selected. That's US Postal. Well, they're already in the top 10 anyway. See what I'm saying? So in fact, that's 2 more teams already up there, so they've already qualified. After that, they look for the sporting teams that have won the team award on the 3 Grand Tours last year. That's the Tour of France, the Tour of Italy and the Tour of Spain. And of those 3, Benesto, Calme were already in there, but Alessio, they won the Tour of Italy, so Alessio have now been moved up into the automatic selections. That makes 11 teams, you see. And then beyond that, they go and take out the other 4 places based upon the order of the classification of the UCI in last season to make up the top 15 places then. Sorry, top 18 places. So down there they've got Lampre, Tacconi, who are riding here today, CSC Tiscali and Escatel. So they're in there. The wild cards, and they can have anywhere up to 22 teams riding in the Grand Tours, and the Tour de France has said there'll be 21. So in fact they've got to find another 5 teams to take part in the Tour de France. So look at this little lot coming along here. The Phonak team are in with a selection, but they're not really given a chance, according to the bookies, of getting a ride in the Tour de France this year. But they've been very spirited all the way through the season. We saw them in the Pyrenees. They beefed up the team, but we're not quite sure if they're going to be able to make the grade. So the other teams then vying for one of those 5 places are as follows. Team Coast. And that is a good selection. We seem to think they might get well selected. That's the team in the yellow here with Zulla riding, because they've also got Casero, winner of the Tour of Italy, sorry, Tour of Spain, that's joined the Coast team. So that's put them in with enough points and interest, I think, in those 2 riders, that they might get selected this year round. Then from the French team, Bonjour, they did quite well last year. They could be in with a shout too, so they could be up there with the rest of them. Psycho, that's a fair chance they'll make it too as well, because they've got Simoni and De Luca and Celestino all riding with the Psycho team this year. Again, the French squad, high chance for La Française des Jeux, who are now 17th in the world UCI selection, and that of course will include something like McGee, who was going so well last year. And the next team, well, AG2R Provence from France. Credit Agricole, well, there's a good chance of Credit Agricole getting a selection. They've always been in there in the past, and they've got people like O'Grady, who's had the green jersey in the previous year. He only lost it on the run-in towards the finish at on the Champs-Élysées, and Voigt's in there too as well. So Credit Agricole, a very good chance they're going to get selected for the overall final 5 places. Amongst the rest of the French teams, well, Big Mat Aubert, they said if they don't get selected, they won't be sponsoring next year. The Jean de la Tour, well, they've got some good riders, if you like, Brochard and Halgar, but they haven't really performed very much this year. And the story is that if Jean de la Tour don't get selected, then someone's going to be reaching for the telephone book of his lawyer, but we'll have to wait and see about that one. Right off the scale of betting is the Mercaton Uno team with Pantani, built around Pantani. He hasn't done anything so far this season except retire or not finish a race, or when he's ridden he's not got anywhere. But of course his whole ambition, I think, is round the Tour of Italy, so perhaps they won't be too bothered if he doesn't get in the Tour de France. So Mercaton Uno, don't go and put your money on them down the bookies, whatever you do. So that's a general rundown on the teams who are looking for selection. So the breath holding of the French teams: Bonjour, Jean de la Tour, La Française des Jeux, AG2R Provence, and Credit Agricole, and Big Mat Aubert. So we've got all those teams then holding their breath. 6 French teams, only 5 places to go, and the pressure is also there that Team Coast should qualify, and Psycho likewise. So it's ringing of hands in Paris today. There's mass field of riders here, and we won't see a sprint finish like this, I don't think, unless some miracle happens on the climb, because we're getting in toward the back end of this very nasty wet stage today. The stage taking the riders from Bellevue, Chambéry on stage 2 of the Tour of Romandie into La Gruyère-Chambéry, and that is 172 kilometres of racing originally. And you can see 5Ks to go now, and 108 miles it is, but we didn't do all of this on 2 wheels. They actually started out with the in vehicles because the weather was so bad then. Well, this climb, the Château-sur-Mont-Savins, when they get over the top of this one, you can see it there on your screen, going up to top 2,600 metres. You saw the 5 kilometres to go sign just a bit down the road, so divide or knock 2.6 off 5 will show that we're going to have a very, very short run in towards the finish, less than 3 kilometres to the finish off the top of this climb. Will they erupt on the climb up here? Will the mountain specialists try and blow the Phonak off the face of the earth? We'll have to wait and see. Frigo, certainly. You see the riders coming up on the left-hand side there for Tacconi Sport. A brilliant mountain climber he is too. We saw David Miller further down the road going in a breakaway group. Wouldn't, I think, has put himself up amongst the particular mountain goats, but this isn't one of those long, drawn-out climbs that we have in the Alps and the Pyrenees on the Tour de France, or the Dolomites on the Tour of Italy, or in fact some of those aggressive, nasty, sharpened climbs we get down in the Tour of Spain. We got the other side of the Pyrenees and across some thumping great climbs down the Sierra Nevada area. On the left-hand side of the screen, our camera just spotted it, and we're beginning to pry the thing apart. Lamprey now starting to put the pressure on. Tonkov is the man from the Lamprey team, past winner of the Tour of Italy, all hopes resting on him. But can he make it on this particular climb, or is he just sending men off down the road? Piccoli from the Lamprey team, a useful little climber indeed, has taken the King of the Mountains climb in the Tour in the past, the Tour of Italy. But this is Bertogliatti that you see on your screen at the moment. Has he been down, is he going off this Swiss rider to get the stage victory, or is he just sort of sounding it out for his other well-placed riders to come up and get him on the climb up to the top? Bear in mind, over the top, just that short, sharp little not under 3 kilometres, but it's not downhill, by the way. It sort of flattens out a bit as we've now got the Passabartolo team starting to put the pressure on the front. Passabartolo, well, last year Frigo rode with them, but got slung off the squad when he owned up to having some strange substances in his room during the Tour of Italy. He wasn't accused or found to be taking anything, but certainly he was thrown off the Passabartolo team. And also some other news, by the way, about the Passabartolo team. They're waiting for a check on their rider Gustav, who did not start the race after a blood test because he was over the 50% level. But they've said all the time when they've tested his blood naturally, he's been very close to 50% quite naturally. So to just go over the top is a medical problem that he has, and has nothing to do with taking illegal substances. So he's going to have some special checks, and is going off to the UCI to have some checks in the next 2 or 3 days just to follow that through. And he's got lots of doctors' results to show that he hovers near the magical limit of 50. They wouldn't let him start because he'd gone over the top of that one, but he said it's one of those natural things. And in fact, it can happen that way, because I remember the Velo News, that's the every other week, I sort of think bi-monthly, they call it, it's bi-monthly newspaper in America. Very good magazine, cycling magazine out in America, edited by John Wilcoxon, a name well known to many British viewers. John edits that magazine, which comes out every other week, and in fact they did some tests some years ago. I think they're up in Colorado, quite at altitude where they work. They did some tests just across the whole of the office, and they found there were some people there that were over the 50% level just normally, because I suppose living at altitude puts you in those conditions. And so there are some of us that have high hematocrit levels, and some are lower than others. But of course the big thing is the legal people are looking to see where that movement from a lower level to a higher level could be induced by something other than training, exercise, or training at altitude. And there are also, by the way, if I can ramble on about this for a moment because we can't see what the hell's going on, you can actually get tents. Sean Wallace was, I think, one of the first to make these tents. You can have a tent in which you can sleep at night, and it's they do something to the oxygen in it, it's like sleeping at altitude, and that again will increase your red blood corpuscles that push the oxygen around your system. What they want to have the oxygen, your red blood corpuscles increasing in number, is they carry the oxygen around the system, and of course it cleans out all the tiredness and so on. The more oxygen you get into your system, the better you respond physically under pressure. So I'm not a medical man, so I got it quietly wrong, doctor, please bear with me, but nevertheless it's an advantage to have a high red blood count when you're going to be involved in physical effort, particularly over long distances. It won't help you very much if you're a 100-meter sprinter, but certainly it will help you in your recovery, particularly at the end of a big stage, recovery during the night and recovery the next day by sleeping in these altitude tents. And that is a legal way, but again, you can't go 50%. Why 50%, you might ask me? Well, if you go over 50% with the red blood corpuscles, there's another level beyond there. I don't exactly know where it is, but the blood thickens, and so as I said before, it turns into like strawberry jam, and you wake up dead because you get so much of this thickness in there. Your heart can't pump the blood round because it just congeals there, and it stops, bang. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're fast asleep, you just sleep forever if you've got a very, 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 very high blood count. So the UCI, when they stop somebody from starting, as they did the other day with the rider Passabartolo, Gustav, they do it because they call it a health check. They don't want anybody waking up dead during a race, because that would get everybody a bad name. So it's a health check, as they call it. There's no element of saying the man has been taking illegal substances, but of course EPO can in fact increase the red blood corpuscles. It is a natural thing that happens in certain people, and particularly when you're sweating and it's hot and everything else like that affects your blood count. Right, back and out for the race. We're now picking up what's going on our screen. It's Frito nonetheless that's now nipped up the front. I said it was right up his street, this final climb, just like the Col d'Aise, where not only this year we went up to finish on a road stage, but last year on the Pyrenees we had the time trial up there, and that is where Frito went and romped away and won the time trial stage and took over leadership of the Pyrenees. That was last year. This year he got the Col d'Aise. He had this big long layout, 6 months layoff, serving out his sentence, and has come back and he's showing now the immense class. He's riding with Eurosport, and if you saw our coverage of the trailers of this race, you may remember that when we interviewed him, he said that he was happy that Eurosport had the faith and trust in him to offer him a contract for this year, because he was slung off the Fassa Bertolo team immediately. They found these substances in his room, which he said he didn't take. He just had them with him in case he needed them. I think that's an amazing thing, isn't it, to say something like that? But there you are. That's what he said he was doing. And now with 1 kilometre to go, it looks like he could well take the checkered flag, but do bear in mind there are 10 seconds bonus for first man. There are 4 seconds for the rider finishing in second spot. So when he crosses the line here, there's going to be a great deal of watch checking to see what sort of lead he's going to have at the end of it all, because coming into the stage today, Frigo was in 6th spot, 6 seconds down on Verbrugge. He's missed out, by the way, on the interim sprints, because there's been some interim sprints in there. Verbrugge and Moose have been helping themselves to extra seconds bonus in there. So my quick calculation, I reckon Frigo is probably 9 seconds adrift of for Moose and Verbrugge. So he's got to win this stage here, have a bit of a gap behind him before the rest come in. So it's touch and go now whether Frigo can. It looks like down there too, one of the riders from Coffin is starting to stream off the front as well. So then Frigo coming in with some 300 or 400 metres to go. He's very burying himself here, and when he goes across the line, he needs the 10 seconds. He needs a bigger gap too to make sure that Moose and Verbrugge don't in fact take him off the lead. He could take both the stage and the yellow jersey. Can he hang on in there? I should say he's going to do, because looking down the finishing straight, then the crowd can see the big bunch coming behind Frigo. And as we have all sorts of drama with our pictures for you, we can see now that he's going to take the stage there, and the big question is what will be the gap then behind him as they come through here. And well, it looked to me on my watch about 4 seconds difference, so that certainly means he's going to take the leader's jersey. 10 seconds bonus plus 4. I don't think, I'll have to wait and see again as to whether back down there into second or third spot Verbrugge or Moose got it. Too interested in looking at the time gap, because bear in mind there's 6 seconds and 4. Complicated it might be, so let's wait and see as to what the second and third places were. Well, that certainly will split the field a bit more. There was a fairish bunch coming in behind Frigo, but I think we're going to see a different look on the general classifications. He comes in here, and Zuller trying hard to come up, and one of the Mappe riders just behind there too as well. I think that might be, let's wait till we see a bit closer. Certainly I can't see Moose and I can't see Verbrugge, and so behind it looks like Zuller could well have got second spot on the climb. Now there's an interesting situation if he can do well again like that tomorrow, because he's a cracking time trials, ex-world champion. So that could set the jolly good scene for Sunday's race. Well, confirmation coming over that Frigo has taken the yellow jersey, and Zuller coming up behind, and the confidence rider, I think that's Cuesta probably just coming in on the side of him, and Fassa Bertolo trying to get in there. Well, we'll wait for official rundown on that one. Looks a bit like something from a Couplix now, doesn't it, with those helicopters hovering in the background. So we've seen yet again another change in this race. Technically on the road, Moose taking over the leadership, but he didn't have the strength in his legs, and there we are. It was Zilla then, as they quickly flashed it up and flashed it down again. Now you see it, now you don't, but with Zilla in there into second spot, well, no doubt about it, we'll see a double celery for Frigo, leader today. And that's David Miller, by the way, just coming in 2 minutes 43 seconds down. Probably sensibly has not ripped himself to pieces. He did what he had to do earlier on further back down the course. We're going back out to Frigo. So David's now finished, losing a bit more time. So that'll dropped him off the top 10. But I suspect, in fact, I'll try and find out for you later on. We get a chance to get off our commentary point and to, because the difficulty is getting to talk to anybody in these conditions is very difficult, so I have to try and do that in the evening. I'll try and find out as to whether David did that deliberately, because there is that time trial on the Sunday, and if you're not going to finish up there on the podium in first, second or third spot, there's every reason to say, I suppose, that well, let's take it easy and go for the time trial on Sunday, because he's certainly looking in very good form at the moment, David. Time trial was the great thing that helped Chris Bourman when he finished in second spot in 1997. Chris there taking the prologue and the final time trial, and was beaten by Tonkov, who's riding today, but not with the fire he used to have, Tonkov. So we've had riders in Great Britain doing well in this race in the past, and it was Robert Miller who was our best placed rider some years ago, finished twice second in 1990 and 91 in the Tour of Romandie, and was third the year before that in 1989 when Phil Anderson ran out victor. But the overall best success so far in terms of number of victories was Stephen Roche, triple winner of this race, the only man that's won it 3 times. He won it in 83, 84 and 87. So Miller now on his way back then to the hotel. Cameras probably go round, because as I say, they've got the ski lifts just around here. They've just come up then towards where many of you go skiing in this part of the world. It's not perhaps the most famous place for its skiing, but certainly up there is the ski lifts, and maybe picking up on your screen of the teleferiques as dribs and drabs the riders coming in here. Miserable conditions then, after quite an interesting day then, with Frigo taking the victory and the lead.